Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
And I'm trying to cut the Gojo deal.
I'm Tristan Jones, sending pints of blood.
I'm Marcy Gonzalez.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss Season 4, Episode 5 of the HBO series Succession. The episode we watched last night was entitled Kill List. And it's apropos we have four of us because I've always considered us the Quad Squad. Just like cousin Greg said, we're the Quad Squad, the Roy Patrol, the family. I love when he said the family and then Shiv without missing a beat. She's like, the fuck? Yeah. That was so great. Anyway, another great episode of Succession. Let's get everybody's overall thoughts before we almost go scene by scene because this show is so damn good. Frank, start us off. What are your overall thoughts on episode 5?
I ain't gonna lie to you guys. I was incredibly intrigued yet confused the whole fucking time. If that's what negotiations look like, then I'll be a lost puppy in the negotiation room. I mean, the acting was great. I feel like everybody's poker cards was like held up to their vest while simultaneously not knowing what they want to do. And it was just it was. I mean, the banter was great. The weirdness of Lucas Madsen rests up the head again. Once again, I don't know if this is a game that he's playing. I don't know if that life comes so easy to him that he doesn't take shit serious. But it's intriguing to watch him like interact with people and like the coldness that comes along with him is incredible. Like him and Logan are similar in the sense that they're both cunts, they're both assholes. But Lucas seems more cold as far as like what's going on with the Roys and the transition of power. But I mean, it was definitely intriguing. I was just confused the whole damn time, but I like the episode.
Tristan, what are your thoughts?
I really liked the episode. Like it wasn't the most pivotal episode. It didn't seem like a ton was happening, but if you look kind of like between the lines of everything that we saw in the episode, a lot actually happened. A lot of consequential things happened. But I'm with Frank. Like I walked away from that episode, I guess intentionally confused. I think like the point of last night was the show demonstrating like how just how confusing negotiations can be. Like Frank said, like every time we've seen a negotiation, it hasn't been like this precise, tennis back and forth of, hey, I want to have the way that they portrayed it last night or depicted it was like, I guess it was kind of easy for regular people to follow, but it wasn't really clear until they start throwing out numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like everything else was just kind of like talking, you know what I'm saying? Conjecture, whatever. But with that said, like I loved how the show, especially after Logan's death, has placed so much of the tension before Logan died was about everybody's position, and once Logan stepped down, like everybody kind of positioned themselves for like the next thing. And now it's like everybody's kind of fighting for survival, hence the title of this episode. So I love like just the nuanced ways that they kind of depicted everybody jockeying for position still just in a different way, or just really, especially in like Tom's case and a lot of the old guard, like they're literally fighting for their own survival. And I can't wait to see throughout the rest of the season, like how that influences like who gets stabbed in the back, who gets moved, like a chess piece this way, so on and so forth. So like I said, not the most pivotal episode, but I think an episode that kind of perfectly encapsulates what Succession is really truly about. So in that sense, I loved it.
Marcy, what are your thoughts? Maybe you can bring some more clarity to the confusion that I think all of us kind of had with the ending of the episode.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I can. First of all, this episode made me thankful, even though I've had some like not great bosses. None of my bosses have ever sent me like pints or liters of their frozen blood. So for that, I'm thankful. Like it gave me like
half liter though. Half liter.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
not as scary, but yeah, what the fuck? On that, but also like Tristan said, everybody's jockeying for power and it's just kind of cutthroat. against like this beautiful backdrop and scenery. So I liked that juxtaposition, but I think this was just an episode where everybody's just kind of like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Starting with Kendall and Roman, because they initially wanted to, tank the deal, and that's not what ended up happening. So I'm really excited to see how it bites them in the ass, because I think that will be really fun to watch.
See, I think they're still going to tank the deal. I don't know how they do that, but I mean, with the end of the episode, Matsson upped the price for everything, including Waystar, ATN, the whole thing, the whole operation. And, it makes it, he basically made that move to basically say, you can't say no to this, because when we're going to make it public, your senior executives, your board, they're all going to know about this number. This is a crazy number. So you almost have to take the deal. That's why Kendall and Roman, while they're celebrating with champagne at the end on the plane, they're pretty bummed out because they don't want to sell to this guy. For different reasons. Roman doesn't want to sell because he does not like he hates Matsson for a lot of reasons, which we'll get into. But for Kendall, he doesn't want to give up the control, the power of running his dad's company. That's what he's always wanted. And they've been running it for like 24 hours, and he's saying stuff like, yeah, we're doing a good job, and we're we like doing this. And it's like, man, you've had this job for like literally a day, and he's very comfortable in that spot, and he just doesn't want to give up control. So,
and another reason Roman doesn't want to do it is because ATN, really that was his father's baby, and that's like the last connection that he has to Logan. He doesn't like the deal at all. And I think the show has kind of led us to like, we should trust Roman's instincts on business, even if he doesn't execute it all the way the right way, or even if he does something to fuck up his own like execution or whatnot. Like, we should trust Roman on that. And it's weird because he's kind of become like the moral center of the show, which is wild to even think about. But that he definitely does not want to get rid of the thing that his father would want to hold on the most. So.
Yeah, and they don't trust what Matsson will do with the company, especially with ATN. ATN is this like Fox News like channel in their world, and he basically told them like, I'm going to strip it down. I'm going to, I'm going to make it cheap and simple and huge. And he's like, it's going to be IKEA to fuck. That's how he described it. And you're right. They don't want to give up their dad. Like, that was their dad's crown jewel. That was his, that was his baby. And to give that, honestly, Shiv wants to. Shiv, she doesn't agree with the politics of the network anyway, so she doesn't mind selling it. And I think Kendall's kind of like, he just wants to run the company no matter what it is. But Roman definitely is tugging at his heartstrings. But overall for me, I thought this was like an all-time episode. Like the insults, the acting, the scenes were just like, Succession is so consistent, but this one was just like, man, this is an excellent episode. We're seeing like the power shifting, like as we're going through the episode. All these characters, like Tristan mentioned before, they're fighting to stay, whether it's stay on top or just keep a job with the company or whatever the company is going forward. And, also it's one of these episodes where they put everybody on a plane and then flew them to Norway, and they're all in one location. And these location episodes always stand out because they put all the characters in the same space, and you have to see them, kind of interact with each other. And it's just magic, like every time they do that, it works. So let's start out with how the episode opened. I thought it was pretty interesting the way that the episode opened, because it shows Kendall going to work exactly like in episode 1. He's listening to Jay-Z, he's listening to some rap music. I'm not sure if it was Jay-Z in the first episode of the series, but it was, he's listening to music, he's in his car, he's got his driver.
Hold on. We're gonna show this Jay-Z song some respect. That's Takeover right there, right?
Well, that was in the first episode or in episode.
I have to go back and check, but
yeah.
I do remember he was listening to a rap song.
Right.
I'm not sure it was Jay-Z, but I could absolutely be wrong with that.
But it's interesting because like in the first episode of the series, he was going into work, and that was the day he was going to kind of take over. And now he's going in to actually take over, whether it be interim or whatever. I thought that was like a cool way to start the episode as a nod back to the first episode. Frank, do you have any thoughts on that? Like that how they drew, tied that together?
Yeah, I can't remember the song episode 1 of season 1, but I do love the symmetry between the scenes between season 1 and season 4 of the confidence, the bravado that he's showing as he walks in, throwing around, different commands to his subjects, and the line that he gave to the new advisors. He's like, "Yeah, these are new advisors." And he's like, oh, "Okay, well, fuck off for now. But I need you. I'll call you guys." Like like episode 1, he showed confidence just like in season 1. Then once he got down to the crunch of the numbers and like decision making, he's unsure of himself. He's backpedaling. He wants to revisit with Shiv and Roman. And that's really the whole vibe I got throughout the episode until a certain point. Of when he want to take the deal. Kendall frustrates me. He frustrates me because you would think after 4 seasons, he would have achieved some type of confidence, some type of like wherewithal of like who he is, where he's come from. And, I don't know if he goes through with the deal. I guess we won't know until later on in the season, but that's when I would know if Kendall has really grown to his shoes. Because one thing about Succession, I think what it shows you is that these kids are trying to mirror everything their father have done and what they would have done. And I think what the show is trying to tell you is that in order to lead in business, you have to have your own identity. Because on the outside looking in, people are just gonna look at you as, oh, you just aspire on your father. You just another wannabe. Until you put your claws into your identity and what you want to be, as a leader.
I think these characters, honestly, it's hard to tell what they want. But I think whatever it is they want, I think they all want different things. I really do. I think that that's how it's going to kind of play out. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see about that. Tristan, do you have any thoughts about how Kendall, the parallels from episode 1 coming in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a clear parallel. One thing I do remember from episode 1 is, like Frank said, like the confidence that Kendall is trying to show. That even though he clearly doesn't fully have said confidence, but he's at least trying to create a persona of confidence. I mean, it's them starting with Takeover is the perfect kind of song choice, because the Takeover is Takeover. Like it's an announcement. It's an assertion of like dominance. It's an assertion that I'm the one that's on top. I'm the one that's in charge. Like that's the nature of the song. And Kendall, the second that he, everybody tells him that, hey, his father wanted him to be the top guy, like his whole persona changes. It's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be. And he adopts that persona of CEO guy. And he's better at the persona than he is at the job. At this point, he's almost, in a way, kind of perfected the persona, the CEO persona, with a lot of dickishness in there, but he doesn't like fully have the confidence because he just doesn't have the reps of being that. His father never really gave him the opportunity to take those reps as being the guy in charge. So he's just been kind of cosplaying as his father in a way, or just cosplaying as your standard, mid 40s or 40-year-old white CEO. Like that's all he knows. So the parallels are the same in that in both ways he's kind of stepping into a role he's not ready for, and he's like, I'm gonna kind of fake my way through it. But for me, like the song choice really is what drives home that parallel. Like the takeover, I'm taking over this position, I'm taking over this company, I'm taking over these decisions for the company and for the family and so on and so forth. Before you fully have the respect of like your peers, your family, everybody involved, to like really be effective in that role. So that was the parallel for me.
Yeah, he comes in, he's like Mr. Cool Guy. These are your new extra manpower, whatever they're called. And he's like, oh, hello, extra manpower. You can fuck off now, whatever. And until he walks in the office and he sees his dad's empty office, which is much like in the previous episode where Roman and Kendall were like they're in like the dad's den or whatever, and they see his coat or his jacket or sweater or whatever on his computer and everything. Marcy, what did you think about that part where it seems like every episode they're gonna like Logan's gone, right? He was, basically the pillar, the main character in this show, the sun that this whole show kind of like orbited around. And it seems like every episode they're going to give us a nod to, yep, he's gone but not forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. I like how that was such a subtle moment. It was subtle, but still you could pick up on it. And I think, again, we are probably going to see a lot more of that, Justin. And I think it's going to show, like you said, Logan was the sun that everything revolved around, and how, like, now that the sun is no longer there, how like everything orbiting around it is kind of tilted a little on its axis. We definitely saw that with Roman this episode. We saw it a little bit with Shiv last episode. And again, this episode, she just kind of shared little tidbits that you could really see like how she's really feeling, even if she's trying to put on like this persona of like, no, like I'm, doing okay. But I think they're going to keep hammering that. And even the whole situation where Connor was texting Roman pictures of their dad to get their approval. Again, that's like Logan is there, but he's not really there, but his presence is still like huge, to where I think like that's a big part of what kind of just broke Roman in that episode and made him go off on Matsson. And so I definitely think we're going to keep seeing more of like Logan's presence still being felt.
The Connor stuff is great. I was going to get to that in a little bit, but no, I'm glad you brought that up, because Connor and Willa, they have a very small role in this episode, but they're still back in New York. They're at Frankie Campbell's, which I guess is like a highfalutin like funeral home in in New York. And Connor is calling Roman and Kendall and Shiv basically he wants to be able to make the decisions on what his dad is buried in, because apparently Marsha wants to bury Logan in a kilt. And as Connor says, he looked like a fucking Bay City Roller, which I thought was funny, which I think the Bay City Rollers were like a band like in the 70s, like a silly kind of pop band in the 70s. But I like how, Connor's calling, his younger siblings. He's basically asking them like, hey, like, I've got a lot going on. I've got a full plate here. He said, I just had to cancel on a room full of working class whites in Cleveland, because he's running his ill-fated presidential campaign, and he's calling them to get their blessing or whatever. He wants to be able to make the decision where, he's worried that like, hey, if my dad ends up looking bad at the funeral, I don't want to be blamed for it. And Kendall basically like says, you can do it. Kendall doesn't care. He's focused on this deal with Matsson. But I did think that was like a funny way to involve Connor. I mean, this is probably like I guess there's been episodes where he wasn't even in the episode at all, but I thought it was a nice touch to show, how to bring him into exactly. Just to kind of involve him in the conversation.
I would think that Marsha would have final say, right? Since she's the current wife.
That's a good question.
She does. But the dynamic between the kids and Marsha is that she's the one person that they can't out privilege, just like throw their privilege around and get what they want. Like, she's not intimidated by them. I don't think she respects any of them, much of anything. And she's a gangster. Like, Marsha scares me. Like, Marsha's not to be fucked with. I mean, I think Marsha could get you clapped. You were like with through a text message. Like, I don't. But she's not intimidated. She's not scared of them. She doesn't see them as above her in any way. Even when Logan was alive,
yeah,
she like understands her role, or she understood her role within Logan's life and the power that came with it. And she also understood that those kids are not a threat to said power. She's not afraid to like use her legal authority. She's not afraid to use her, authority as, executive of his estate, his ex-wife, so on and so. Like, she doesn't consider them in matters that she feels like she has authority on. Like, she will absolutely demonstrate like some type of, niceties towards them once the decisions are been made. But she's also very clear, the decision's been made. When Shiv and everybody was trying to go upstairs to see Logan when he first came back from the hospital, she was adamant, no. Like Shiv had to like, in a petulant way, just kind of force her way up there. Like, I want to see my daddy. And that all that did was make Marcia lose even more respect for Shiv. And she had no problem telling her that. Like, you're a spoiled fucking brat. Right to her face.
It just seemed like a waste of a phone call from Khan to the kids if Marcia has authority already. I don't know how valid that phone call even was.
I think it's to show his ineptitude. Again, like, he's running for president. He wants to run the country. He can't like make this one small decision, but he wants to make a whole bunch of executive decisions. And like, I don't want to be blamed for it. Being president, you're going to be blamed for like all of the shit, even if you had nothing to do with it. So I definitely think it just shows how much of a joke Connor is, but again, how much they are all just wanting approval. If it's not approval from their dad, it's approval from each other or approval from other people. So like, they're all just kind of inept. But yeah, like poor Connor, I think he's the most inept one of them all.
Well, I don't know about y'all. I want Khan running this country. So what's that talking about?
And we didn't see this. Maybe it happened off screen, but maybe Connor bought the right to have that decision from Marcia for $63 million, and they settled it with a spit handshake. I mean, we didn't see that, but that's very possible. So, I mean, hell, she might have enough money at the end to buy Waystar herself or buy Gojo or whatever and just take over.
Quiet as kept. Like she's on the board. I don't know how much she got from Logan's, estate, whatever, but Marcia's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
she's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Marcia is definitely a power player in this series. And speaking of power players, let's talk about Matsson. His first power move in this episode. So originally it was just going to be, I believe, Roman and Kendall, the new co-CEOs, not the CE bros, but the co-CEOs. They were going to be, heading over to Norway for this retreat with Gojo to try to get this deal done. And last minute, Matsson decides to invite the whole team to Norway. They're calling it a cultural compatibility check. And, Kendall, you can tell he even wonders aloud, should we say no so that we don't look weak? But then Jerry kind of convinces him otherwise. I think I know the answer to this, but Frank, with you, do you think it was a weak move for basically for everyone at Waystar just to kind of, jump whenever Matsson said so?
Yeah, it looked desperate. And Matsson knows like they lost their king. There's probably infighting going on, which he suspects. There's probably like a direction. He's like, let me see how far I can play with them on my puppet fingers and see how far I can go with this deal and see how much I can manipulate them and fuck with them. The brashness of like coldness towards the death of their father is amazing to me. Like the man just died like 3 days ago, or maybe like 4 days ago.
2 days ago, I think.
Crack jokes like that in that manner. Tristan?
I was just saying, 2 days. Like you said, I think they mentioned 48 hours.
Yeah, it's like the body's not even cold yet. And for him to crack these insensitive jokes just shows the lack of respect that he has for the rest of the Roy clan. It was incredibly weak. Because if I'm Kendall, I'm like, fuck you. I'm not coming to you. Especially if Kendall is like still like unsure about at that time, he was still pretty unsure about the deal in itself and whether or not he wanted to even go through with this, since it was more Logan's deal than his. I would say, fuck you. Like, if anything, you come to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not packing my 30 high power decision makers and come to your beck and call. Especially at a retreat that you purposely started the retreat knowing my dad was dead and still wanted us to come out there in the first place. I think it was episode 3. So nah, it was definitely weak.
Tristan, what do you say?
I agree. It was weak. I mean, the reason why the show has them call it out is because it is weak, and it's a very obvious weak move from them. Like at the very least, like, we could meet somewhere neutral. You know what I'm saying? Or hey, let's table this until we've had time to bury our father or whatever. But that is a common move. We've seen that in like Game of Thrones. Like when the head of a house dies, like, you know, rival groups, people who want something, who want to extract resources from that, you know, that group, that family who's lost the head. And they know that they're at their most vulnerable, right? There's a vacuum, a power vacuum. Nobody really understands who's in charge. Even with, I guess, Roman and Kendall acting as, you know, the heads of the company, they still don't really feel comfortable making moves without Shiv being present, or, you know, seeing what she thinks first, or taking this here, taking this there. Like, and Madsen understands that. He understood that when Logan was alive, like the way that Logan was so eager to kind of discard his children for the right deal. Like, he took his cue from that. So like, that's the irony of Logan. Like, everybody wants to like kind of live up, and even though Logan's gone, like in a way, kind of still looking for his approval. When Logan, he never saw anybody else's approval, especially the kids. Like he would sacrifice them for his ultimate goals at the drop of a dime. And they just don't have that yet. And Madsen knows that.
Yeah. Marcy's going to ask you, so as I mentioned before, Jerry kind of convinces him to, you know, like, hey, like, this is the only reason why we're doing this is because this deal, it's going to happen. We all want it to happen. It looks like it's going to happen. Do you think from a business perspective, it kind of made sense for them to just all pack up and go? Or if you were in charge, what would you do? I guess is what I'm saying.
I mean, yes, if you want the deal to go through, you do it, but it's incredibly weak because then that shows that they have like no leverage, like no bargaining power in this deal, right? They couldn't even say, hey, can we postpone this meeting at least a few days until we've, you know, buried our dad? Like, no, they didn't even have like that much leverage to come back to Madsen and say that. So, I mean, yes, it would make sense if you really want this deal, but then you're just really showing him how desperate you are, and that just helps him when it comes to negotiations, doesn't help you, even though it seems to have played out in a different way.
Yeah. And I get it. Business, I mean, I guess what the show has shown me is that in business, it's never personal. It's just business. I mean, Nina Brown taught me that when I was like 7 years old. But it's like, I wish there was some type of morality, man. Like, golly, you just made a deal with this man like 3 months ago, a handshake deal on you know, taking on you know, Waystar, and he was alive, and for him to die, at least have the respect enough to be like, you know what, I'll let you bury your father, and we can reconvene. I guess he's trying to, you know, get the best deal possible, pennies on the dollar, because he made the point that the stock had dropped a little bit, and I think it went back up 10 points on Monday or whatever. He's trying to strike where the iron's hot for him, which I understand, but it's like, fuck, this is cold-blooded, bro. It makes me cringe a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, it's a tough look, but you know, one of the good byproducts of this decision is now we got to see Team Waystar versus Team Gojo, and I love this. Is one of my favorite parts about this episode is you get you know, the Waystar people to kind of see like their doppelgangers on the Gojo team, and I love how, you know, Carolina mentions that, you know, the deputy of comms is a ski jumper for Gojo, you know, and she's bringing up all this thing, and, you know, and Hugo is like just fixated on the fact that this ex-Winter Olympian is now, you know, is basically in the same job that he has. And, you know, he's talking about how like, oh, this guy blew a 7-point lead at the Sochi Winter Games, which when he said Sochi, I just like cracked up because the only reason why we know that place is because of the Winter Olympics. I think so. I'd never heard of Sochi until then. But I love how he's like, you know, this guy's a choker. And then when he meets the guy from Gojo, the guy's name is Andres. He's like, oh, he's like, you nearly got a bronze at Sochi. He's like, that's almost huge, man. It's like, you know, those darn tenths of a second. He's like, you know, if you just tuck, I love, like, you know, I love how he's like, he's trying to make himself feel better. He's trying to make a guy who finished 4th at the Olympics feel like a loser. You know, like in the game of life, that guy's a big time winner. But I love how Hugo's like trying to take shots at him. Frank, what do you think about that?
Well, so before I answer, I want to. So, do you think that him saying that to Andres was the reason he was on the kill list to the end of the episode?
No, I don't. I think that was going to happen. I think that was already predetermined.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was incredibly small of Hugo to even go there. Like, bro, you're not. There's nothing athletic about you, bro. Like this man was a former Olympian. Like, there's nothing you can say to him that can make you feel better about yourself. And if you felt better about yourself, that just shows how little you are as a man to be that unsure of yourself as a comms guy. It was so weak. It was such a weak play. And then given the hot water that he's in, the last thing I want to do if I'm Hugo is bring more attention to myself.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me that he was trying to like say that like through shade, right? Like I just think that all of those, especially those old guard guys and women, like they've been so locked into the bubble of like the Logan sphere that they just don't know how to interact with people. You know, they're like they don't know how to network. They don't know how to like walk into a room and be bigger than what they already are because they're so used to tucking in so much of their personality and the things that they want to say in service of Logan, right? That's all they told me is that they are everybody involved, honestly, is so unskilled at the social part of their job, the thing that makes them likable, the thing that connects them to people, the thing that makes people want to work with them further, you know, or be around them when they don't have to be. They're so horrible at that, like all of them. Yeah. Like I think Jerry might be the best one. Like she just has a better world sense, but like the rest of them are only comfortable around each other. Right. Like Carl and Hugo are only comfortable around Frank. Right. Like they're only comfortable when they have somebody that they can shit on. Like they keep Tom around because he's a consistent, ready-made punching bag. They can always punch him down or punch down to him. And when they got there to Norway, like you can't punch down on these people. Like they're literally your equals, right? In some ways, they're your superiors, right? Athletically and academically, so on and so forth. So that's all it showed me. I had no point where I was like, Hugo is just trying to be shady, right? Like no, it's just Hugo. Social interaction.
Yeah, bitch, I one-upped you there. Like it was very petty.
He's trying to take the guy down a peg. He's trying to say, you almost were a medalist at the Olympics. Like, I mean, think about how many people are in the Olympics. Like, these are like the best people. I mean, granted, like some of these sports, none of us would watch if it was in our backyard. You know what I'm saying? But like, I mean, if you're competing in the Olympics, you're one of the best in the world at what you do, and it's like a very, very limited amount of people can have experienced like competing in the Olympics, much less winning a medal. And for him to like say, "Oh, you almost got there. You nearly did it." Like to take him down a peg was just like he was just grasping at straws. Like I got to say something to this guy to bring him down to my level.
Did he say like it was almost 17th of a point or something like he gave the margin of how he lost?
Yeah,
and like bro, come on, bro, like really?
Yeah, he's a choker. I just liked how Carolina, she's laying it out. She's like, they're just a bunch of really impressive young people. I think she had a sense that she wasn't going to be on the chopping block, because I think she's kind of more along their lines anyway. But I don't know. I thought that was great. I also thought that while they're on the plane and they're talking about, the impressive young people, I love Jerry's monologue, and I'm going to read it here because I thought it was like one of her best scenes where she's like, sure, they're young and they're fit. She's like, but they're European and they're soft. She's like, hammocked and their social security nets, sick on vacation mania and free healthcare. They may think they're Vikings, but we've been raised by wolves, exposed to a pathogen that goes by the name Logan Roy, and they have no idea what's coming to them. And they're like Hugo, he's like, actually, we're snakes on a plane. I like that. Marcy, what were your thoughts on Jerry trying to like rally the team with her little like, yeah, they're fit and young, but they're European and soft. We're American. We're better.
I loved her attempt, but also I don't think they knew the Waystar Royco group. I don't think they knew what they were walking into. I think they really underestimated it. So good attempt on her part to kind of raise their spirits and get them all gung-ho about it. But yeah, no, I definitely think that those strong young people like really outstronged and outsmart you, and they're not so soft once you really think about it. So good job, Jerry.
No, but I do like how she's trying to play like, oh, they have free health care and they take all this vacation time because, you know, Americans famously, we don't take off the time that we're allotted, most people, and obviously we don't have a free healthcare system. So I did like the kind of the politics or the geopolitics that were in play.
But here's what they're mentioning. Here's what they're missing. I'm sorry.
Yep.
All that free healthcare and the paid time off and so on, like that's what makes them stronger than us.
Yeah, they're living better lives than we are, like hands down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, even just looking at Kendall again, we talked about the symmetry between the first episode, the pilot episode, and this one where he's in the car and he's jamming out to music. Like you can tell how old like Kendall looks, and it's like, damn, it's only been like 4 years, Ken. You look so old. This is what like chronic stress does to you. So yeah, like the Swedes, they looked a lot better. They looked more refreshed, they looked younger. So way to go for free healthcare.
Well, and also for Kendall, it probably helps if you don't accidentally kill a waiter at some point in your life, and also try to drown yourself. Yeah,
rampant drug use.
That too. Yeah, he's done a number on himself. Not to mention what his dad did to him before he died. But yeah, no, I thought that was just a great way to kind of show the difference between not only like the companies but the countries in which they operate. So that was very creative. Frank, want to get your thoughts on so you know, on the plane, Kendall and Roman, they're focused on, you know, what's happening or what they're about to do. They're focused on this deal, and Shiv's trying to like, hey, like, have y'all noticed that there's negative stuff about Dad in the press? Which of course Kendall put that in motion in the last episode. He put Hugo to work to, you know, get that out there, and you know, Shiv is kind of like, hey, this, you know, let's talk about this. And you know, Kendall and Roman are kind of like, oh no, we can't focus on this. And I love how Kendall is like, he's like, you know, we're ogres, we're death wrestling ogres or whatever. And she's like, no, you're reading documents, you know. Mm-hmm. But I did like how it seems like their way to kind of pacify her, to give her like a carrot, was to say, hey, would you like to fire Tom? That was like their gift to her. And she kind of found a way to not do it, which maybe, you know, leads to her how she feels down the road. But what'd you think about that moment where they're like, hey, you want to fire your husband or your soon to be ex-husband?
I thought it was a way for them to distract her, to like emotionally distract her, to keep them out of their business and what they're trying to do with the deal with Madison. But it's the timing is incredibly crazy because of like she's pregnant with possibly Tom's baby. So Shiv is cold, but Shiv's not that cold. Like she knows. And like one thing about Shiv, she's trying to avoid this impending conversation she's gonna have to have with Tom. And like this like preschool mindset of like being mean to the guy, but you really like want to tell you're being mean to the guy, but like you don't want to be vulnerable with the guy because you know that this thing is just this elephant in the room that needs to be had. It shows me that she's just very, and like the rest of the wars, they're just very unsure of themselves and they don't know how to deal with conflict or deal with situations. And something as big as having a baby with your husband that could be your ex-husband, and it's weird that she hasn't told him yet. And I mean, we've known since last season that she had been dealing with the bleeding and spotting, and to like avoid it at for as long as she has just shows a lack of growth and maturity on her part. The Roys, man, the Roys are very good at being dismissive and very good at being, you know, indirect. And the boys, their job was to make sure that she doesn't, you know, sniff what they got going on. But the story is perfect. It's like you're gonna have to come across and tell Tom. And I hope that she tells Tom this episode, because you can't go this long I'm assuming she's still in her first trimester. You can't go into your second trimester and not tell this man that you're possibly the father of the child. So I thought it was weird. It's just very royal of them to be just so immature about everything when it comes to like things that they need to address.
Yeah, she's run out of time because we only have 5 episodes left, and and in this season that means 5 more days. So, there's
She's
very
coming
well.
up on like.
Go ahead.
She's coming up on halfway through that pregnancy. The doctor said like 20 weeks in. Like,
right.
That's soon.
That's crazy.
But I think there's, she might not tell him until the final episode because like I said, there's only 5 days left in this story. So, Tristan, what do you think about? Go ahead, Frank.
I think the part when she holistically saves her job and like, hey, let's have dinner. When we get back, I think that's when she's gonna tell him. I hope that's what it's leading on to be. But if she don't tell him then it's I don't. She may never tell him. I don't know. She may tell him off script, off show. Who knows?
Yeah. But even that shit, even like her like proposing dinner was on some immature like catty shit. Like, hey, you want to have dinner? And then pulls the phone out, like, and then changes the subject, like, and then try to be dismissive, like you said. Like these are children, man. Like there's a reason why in the show when Logan was alive, like he constantly, every time like the siblings themselves are being referenced together, it's always as the kids. Like the show is like I can't say this word for shit in the world. Infantilizes.
There you go.
Shiv, Kendall, and Roman so much. Even Connor. Like Connor's.
He's in his 50s. He's got to be in his 50s. Yeah.
Kendall's 40. So that makes Shiv mid-30s, Roman early 30s. Like these are grown ass people, but they don't have the persona, the consistent persona of adults, and it shows in their interactions with each other. And like the reason why this particular episode is so excellent is because it takes all of like their juvenile quirks and puts it in like a negotiation. Now, like how do all the ways that you demonstrate that you're not really mature enough and not up for these things that we see in your social interactions, in your emotional maturity, how does that play when we throw you into like a informal business meeting, right? And we see like Kendall's unsure of himself. Roman is more sure of himself and more sure of what he thinks should happen, but he also doesn't have like the full courage to just kind of go for it. And the only way he can really express that is like lashing out. Like what he said to Madsen at the end is like, hey, you could tell the board, like, fuck it. Like that was a tantrum, right? Ultimately, it may have gotten them, more money, but like it was a tantrum. And like there's just better ways to do that. So Shiv not being mature enough to tell her still husband that she's pregnant and carrying their child and not being able to do that, like that is a major life moment. And she kind of treats it as like hey, I bought you a gift, but I'm not going to tell you. Like, let's have dinner. Like, hey, I'm going to make you kind of jump through hoops to do that shit. And like, what the fuck? Like, Shiv, you damn near 40.
It's like she's trying to keep the upper hand of power, the power dynamic. Because she even told Madison in the conversation, she's like, when Madison asked her, like, what happened with you guys? She's like, oh, he broke my heart. I broke his. It's like, it was kind of like, it wasn't like a typical conversation. I'm like, this is what happened. These are the emotional stresses that went on. It was kind of like, well, he fucked up my ego and I fucked up his, and like, now the power dynamic is all thrown off. It's a game for her, and she's not ruling in some form of fashion in that relationship. She's failing. It's not a partnership at all. It's a subjugation. She's the dictator, or that's what she wants. So
yeah, she has to have the upper hand on Tom. That's pretty clear. And Marcy, I want to get your thoughts on the whole Tom and Shiv situation. I want to mention though, later on in the episode, Shiv and Tom have a little bit of a chat, and this is after, and we'll get into her talk with Madsen more extensively here in a little bit. But she kind of had this meeting with Madsen and kind of got on his good side seemingly, and then she's talking to Tom, and she starts ripping on his white shoes, and then he fires back and says that her earlobes are thick and chewy. And then she starts mentioning, he's like, "Hey, I saw you met with Matson. How'd that go?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, meeting was fine." She's like, "He's boring, but he's very conventionally attractive." And she's like, "He's broad." She's like, "I thought you were broad, but compared to him, you're wiry." What did you think about how she's using Matson as like this way to get back at Tom, or just the way to, mess with Tom?
I thought it was funny again, like Frank said, a very juvenile way to do it. Like these do not sound like 30 to 40-year-olds that are in a relationship. These are like high school kids in a relationship. Um, but I like how like they just kind of dug at each other, and I was like, damn, like, do I need to worry about like if my earlobes are fat now? Like, what the hell? More things for women to be insecure about. But you could definitely tell like it was really getting to them. So it was fun as a viewer to watch it, but definitely would not be fun to be in that type of situation where like that's the type of dynamic that you're still having at this point in a relationship and at this point in your life. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
Something also that wasn't fun was for Kendall and Roman. Each of their meetings with Matson, there are 3 meetings in this episode. So the first one, Matson, he, as he invited everyone to come to this, this retreat. And then whenever he greets them, he's by himself. He's solo, and they've got 5 or 6 people. He's like, "Oh, y'all are rolling deep. Y'all are trying to outman me, outmaneuver me." And they're, you can tell they're thinking like, "Well, you've invited all of us." Like, you're trying to, once again, you're playing these like mind games and like these tactics to try to, whatever, to make yourself look better, more powerful. And in their first meeting, where it's just Roman and Kendall negotiating with Matson, Matson is just, he's very like, "Hey, like, I don't know if y'all been a part of these, but like, I'll say something, then you say something. Otherwise, this doesn't work." And he's like, I like how he brings up that, their company, fell 20%. They're like, "Well, actually, it went back up 10 more percent." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "But, why do I feel like I'm the guy, at the grocery store when there's a sale and I go to the checkout stand and they want me to pay more?" Like I loved how he kind of simplified stuff. I love just the back and forth between them. And they're like, you could tell they're kind of nervous because like they're, obviously for different reasons. They 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 want to get this done in some ways. And then also you have Roman, who doesn't want to be there because his dad just died. And he's obviously still bothered by that. And, Kendall, I think this is just part of Kendall's, he just wants to play the boss, and he's just this, the boss would go do this stuff. So that's why he's playing the boss. But, you know, Matson makes fun of them because they kind of stumble over their words and they talk at the same time. And it's just like, he's very condescending to them. Right. Like, Frank, what did you think about that first meeting between Matson and the siblings?
I equate that first meeting to like drafting a 3rd round quarterback from a small Division II school, and like the starting quarterback tears ACL in week 1, and he's thrust into starting, and that quarterback just overwhelmed. Game's too fast. Everything is just, it's a shit show, and that's what it looked like. Like, I don't know how many deals they've been a part of prior to like the show inception season 1, but they look like a deer in the headlights. They know what they want to do, and I get it. Their dad just died, right? Like they're still dealing with that emotionally, but they just look very unprepared. And I think I mentioned this last week, or it might have been a week before that, when they had the phone call with Madison, Shiv, the 3 siblings, and Madison, and like they called Madison to pretty much set up this meeting that we saw this episode, and like the kids had no idea who was going to lead the call. There was no planning, and like you just see more of that in this meeting, just more unpreparedness. And Madison, he's a young guy, but he's been around the block. He's a billionaire. Like he's been in a lot of negotiating rooms. He knows when there's somebody who is unsure of themselves. He knows when he can take advantage of somebody. He can tell when somebody is like, or a faction is just not on the same page. And he knew this is the strike. This right now is, I can strike with the irons hot with the dad being gone. I can finagle a good deal that works for me as a Madison. It was tough to watch. It was very tough to watch, and for those people who are rooting for Kendall to triumph and be this leading man, it was just more of the same. And Roman echoed that with his unwillingness and just unpreparedness as well. So as each negotiation got better, they got more comfortable. But like Tristan said, they just need reps. They're just very green. They have no real world experience when it comes to putting together $1 billion deals.
Yeah, I mean they're prepping on the plane and they're going to make their dad's deal, and they were completely knocked off their feet by the fact that Matsson's like, oh no, I want ATN, which I mean I knew that was coming. Not that I could tell from previews or whatever. It's you knew he was going to try to buy everything like that because that's what he wanted originally with Logan, and Logan wouldn't give up ATN. So whenever he's like, here's the number, and I want to buy, I want ATN included. You could tell they weren't prepared, and that's why they're not saying anything after he throws that out there. They're just not ready.
That's foresight. That's a lack of foresight, and that's what not having those reps and not having that experience comes into play, because as much as they were reading and going off, they were trying to do the standard negotiation. I'm going to read, hey, market cap and all these numbers and boom, boom, let's rehearse this and so on and so forth. But what happens when an audible needs to happen? What happens when an adjustment needs to happen? What happens when he throws that wrench in the system of saying, hey, I want the whole thing? And they just got tongue tied. And Matsson, he could smell the blood, especially in that first meeting. He's openly mocking them. He brings up Walter, which is a sore subject for Kendall. He's openly mocking that, their lack of experience. Hey, I don't think you guys know, what a negotiation looks like, but you have to do this. I say this, and you say something in return, and so on. So he obviously has no respect for them and their experience, and it really takes them kind of pulling out of the deal for him to give up at least a little bit of leverage, or give up some type of rope. But he just has no respect for them. And this is going to be a common theme for Kendall and Roman, is fighting that uphill battle of so much of their credibility came from their father. And honestly, they didn't really have a lot of that while he was alive. And now they have to kind of build up their own credibility at, again, 30 something and 40 some years old. You know what I'm saying? That's tough when you don't have the foundation for how to be a good CEO, a good COO, and manage a company and manage people, right? Or to negotiate and go through those things. They don't have the experience.
And more importantly, too, they got to realize as well, your father's dead. Stop trying to figure out what he would have done if he was alive, or what route he would have took. He's gone. Like you said, T. They have to create their own identity and move on forward. Trying to live out the past and trying to simulate what their dad would have done, you're just making more of a joke of yourself, because you're never gonna be your dad, and that's okay. That's okay. Like you said, this is the time now, and just so you know, you guys are interim. You guys are still rehearsing for this position. You guys can be voted out of your roles come the next board the next board meeting. So this is the time now to put your foot down and create an identity. If you get voted out, fuck it. But at least hey, I can look myself in the mirror and realize and say to myself, this is what I wanted, not what Logan wanted, and this is where I want the company to go. Speaking of Kendall and Roman.
Well, I mean, especially their dad was so terrible, and they had such terrible relationships with their dad, and now they're well, we want to save ATN because it's what dad it's his baby and things like that. But when your dad was alive, you all hated each other. There was open contempt between him and you guys and him. So just kind of let go. And I think they just need a lot more growing up and a lot more grieving to do and accepting it, because that's why they're trying to hold on to this thing that they wouldn't have given a shit about if Logan was still alive.
Yeah. And that's the thing is it's not really about the money to them. We've talked about this before. They've always had money. They don't really understand the value of money because they've always had it. So for them to get the better deal, I mean, like Roman, like he wants to keep ATN because, I mean, he wants to keep his dad's empire going the same way. He wanted to work with his dad. He wanted to kind of, do like he wanted to be the heir apparent to his dad and just keep doing business the same way. Whereas I think Shiv maybe would have done something different. Kendall definitely would have done something different. And it's an emotive play, like they said. That's why Mattson wanted to buy. That's why he wanted to include ATN in the deal. He's trying to push their buttons and get at them. And I do like how Roman said, they asked Roman and Kendall go to Shiv after they talked to Mattson about that. And she's like, let's just get rid of it. It's a toxic asset. And then Roman's like, yeah, but his dad's pride and joy. And he died trying to keep it. She's like, well, let's just keep one of his old sweaters. It's less racist that way.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was great. I think the second meeting is probably my favorite with Mattson. The second meeting with Mattson is probably my favorite interaction in the whole episode. Well, I don't know. The end of it on top of the mountain is pretty great too. But I do like when the second meeting, they're out there in the open with all the people at the retreat, and it's clear that Mattson and his crew are kind of making fun of the Roys, and they're speaking, in Swedish or whatever. And I like how Kendall steps up. He's like, are you all done? He's like, maybe it's funnier with subtitles. I'm not sure. Thought that was such a great, hey, we don't speak the language, but we get you're making fun of us. So, shut the fuck up. I did like that. And
insults are universal.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how, after asking for ATN to be included in the deal, Mattson's like, I think we see a way to fix ATN. And I love Kendall. He's like, oh, you see a way back for our phenomenally lucrative and influential news operation? You're going to save that? Thanks, bro. Like, it's like, yeah, we know, like, it's successful. It doesn't need any saving. Like, you just want to buy it because you want everything. But, like, it's doing pretty well on its own. And I do like how, Mattson, which we've talked about the whole time, he has no respect for him. And the ultimate line he drops on him, he's like, I don't care what you think. You're a tribute band. Like, that's such a, like, you're just playing your dad's hits. You're not your dad. Frank, what'd you think about that insult?
Bro, he ethered them, dog, on that one, bro. I had to, rewind that shit. I was like, wait, he said what? That was a bar. That was a bar. And guess what? He's not lying. They're not good at their job. They're, at this point, they're getting blown the fuck out and overwhelmed in this negotiation tactic, and he's just calling a spade. Like, bro, like you're in over your head. Sell now. I can take better care of this baby than you can, than all you can. So, yeah, that was a bar, man. That made me like go, oh shit. I thought they might fight. That's some fighting words, bro.
So,
but
go ahead.
I like how that dialogue kind of mirrors what the show is. Like, I guess like the progression is like at the beginning of this, the kids are fighting their dad. Dad dies. Now they're trying to be their dad.
Yeah.
Like the thing that's going to wrap the season up and the thing that's going to set them free in some type of way is them, like Frank mentioned it earlier, at some point they're going to have to build their own identities and they're going to have to live with that. And they can't. Right now, they're just doing cosplay as Logan Roy. And none of them are as good at it. They don't have the experience. They don't have the ruthlessness. They don't have the connections. They don't have the credibility. So, like, at some point, they're going to have to build their own identity, and they're going to have to learn it. They're going to have to do that together. Kendall's still trying to maneuver around his siblings as the lead top dog. Shiv is trying to make her way in. She's trying to kind of shift the whole company, to the left, ideologically. And Roman is still trying to hold on to whatever piece of his dad he can. Like, I know it's been 48 hours since he died, but they're in the water, right? And the sharks are circling, and they're gonna have to figure out a different way to be effective in this, because this isn't working, regardless of how much money Mattson throws at them. Like, this is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I did like how after the tribute band line happens, Shiv kind of steps in. She's like, hey, are we okay here? And Mattson's response was, yeah. He's like, we're okay. I'm just trying to make you fucking rich. And Kendall's response, like Deadeye, was like already rich. It's true. It's like we got money, man. Like it's really not about money with us. It's real like I don't know what it's about totally, but it's not about the dollars and cents because they got that stuff.
Can we talk about? So it was casually mentioned in this episode, but like apparently, I guess with Matrixon's campaign, there's some biasness going on with ATN and is it Matrixon? Is that his name?
No, it's Jared Minkin
Minkin.
He is the clearly like a Republican candidate that ATN is not only backing, but is apparently they're involved in his morning meetings or whatever. They have a direct line to the guy to obviously to push his agenda to their viewers.
That could play a part, man, in like the deal, like with ATN, like that's. I mean, it was casually mentioned, but that's a big thing. Like if they're showing like that much favoritism to where they're like holding meetings for them, that could be a PR buzzkill.
Yeah, I think I don't know if we talked about this on the show, but Joanna Robinson with The Ringer, she pointed out a few weeks ago that if you base it on the timeline of the days that are left in the season, like election night would be the series finale for the show. So the election is going to be, I'm thinking like now that they've gone to Norway, I think they have to get to the election. Obviously they only have 5 episodes left, but I think the election's going to play a huge role in the final 2 or 3 episodes, I would think. Marcy, I want to get your thoughts on the whole back and forth between Matsson and Kendall, and then we'll transition to kind of how Shiv fits into this. What did you think about that whole back and forth?
I really liked it because I love Kendall. He's just so messed up and so lovable at the same time. But, when the Swedes are, going back and forth, making fun of them, Kendall's like, okay, you want to do this now? Like he takes off his glasses, I guess, to show that he's ready to like fight or whatever. But again, I think Matsson just shows how much he can dominate them without really even trying to do it. And then Kendall, keeps on trying to maybe like assert himself. And I think maybe sometimes he is able to, but I don't think they realize that Matsson is more formidable than they are. He's much more knowledgeable and he can really like kind of run around them. And I think what really stung at him and at Roman too is when he's talking. I don't remember if it's outside when they were talking after they'd been made fun of, but he's like, this was like a spare parts thing. Like this is a chop shop. I'm just going to like use this company for parts and kind of like destroy everything that your dad has built. And I think that really stung at them. And I really think it was really smart of Shiv to find her way into Matsson because I think then she's found a way to circumvent her brothers and, maybe get some more power herself.
Yeah, let's talk about this Shiv Matsson conversation. Obviously, it's very, very entertaining, very interesting. So Shiv sits down privately with Matsson, and he confides in her stuff that, if you're in the middle of a negotiation with, her brothers, I'm not sure you should be telling her this stuff unless you're trying to manipulate her, which I think he is. But then again, I'm just like, I don't understand that move of giving up this information. But so anyway, so he sits down with her and he says, like, he basically is telling her that he's trying to avoid a sexual harassment scandal because he was dating one of his workers, who we find out it's Ebba, who is the comms director for Team Gojo. And I like how he says that as a friendly joke, he sent her a half liter of his frozen blood. And then he said, and I like how Shiv is like, well, first of all, good one about the joke, which obviously she's kidding because I don't get how that'd be a joke. But then he said that, the thing is like to kind of keep it going, he kept sending her his blood. And he said, it became not a joke. Then it became a joke again. And now apparently it's not a joke. So Matsson says, well, like, I guess what I'll do is I'll just deny it and I'll lawyer up. And Shiv's like, well, it's going to be tough to deny it because, you've given her so much of your blood, like that's going to be a tough like denial. And then she's like, and if this ever comes out, like after you purchase Waystar, like the US media is going to be all over it. They're going to mention this. This is going to hurt your company going forward. And I like how she gives the advice of like, she has her media plan. She's like, okay, number one, she's like, this might be hard for you, but stop sending people your blood. I just love the way she delivers her lines. They're so great. And then she's like, also like definitely do not fire this person. Don't fire her. Maybe I can get Jerry to help you with this or whatever. But first off, let's talk about that. How crazy of a situation is this? Is it a strategic play? If so, I don't understand what he's trying to do because he's arming her with something that can harm him, not knowing if she's on his side. Frank, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't think it's a strategic play. I think it's an act of desperation. Actually, I think
Really?
He's so ashamed of this blood ritual shit. I think that I don't think anybody on his team knows besides Ebba. And I think he's too embarrassed to go to his team to ask for advice. So he's asking Shiv because I guess he finds something in Shiv as far as like quality and like quietness and a secretive nature. But I think he's desperate, and I think that's why and now that has come out, I think that's why he's so eager at pushing this deal through, because he knows if this comes out prior to him making any more deals, it's going to be tough for him to get deals done because of the PR firestorm.
That's a good point.
But again, even if this deal goes through, he's going to have to deal with this if this comes out after the fact. I think that's him doing his research on Shiv, and like I know Shiv worked with he probably knows Shiv worked with like presidential candidates in the past and politicians in the past, so she probably dealt with a level of weirdness when it comes to this kind of PR stuff, and this is his way of getting like some unofficial free advice in a way.
Yeah, and then he also gives her some compliments. He says like, you're cool and you're not judgy. Which, it's the blood thing. The blood thing. Most people would be pretty judgy about that. But yeah, go ahead.
No, when the conversation started in the room, it seemed like he was gonna make a pass at her, but I think he was kind of like reading her out before saying what he was gonna say. But no, I think it's an act of desperation. I think he knows shit's about to hit the fan, and he needs advice on how to deal with this.
And he also compliments her by saying like, you can take a joke. You're like your dad, which I think all of these kids want to be told they're like their dad, even though they didn't necessarily love their dad. So the dynamics of that is crazy. Tristan, what are your thoughts on the whole Shiv Matsson conversation?
I have no fucking idea. Like I can kind of take what Frank said at face value. Like, it does in a way kind of seem like he's fishing, kind of seeing where she lies on certain issues, or maybe he's seeking advice, or maybe he's manipulating, or maybe he's just a fucking child. Like, I think like the whole blood thing is he's a child. He's a child with money and power and stuff like that. And that's where like the harassment and things, like if we go back to last season, like he says a lot of crude things in regards to women and their bodies and sex and stuff like that. Like, I think the show is also kind of pushing us to see who Matsson is, like, behind the money and behind like the company and stuff. He has issues with women. Like, we can say that.
Yeah.
Is he telling Shiv this because he is seeking help in some type of way? I couldn't tell you. Like, I need to know more. I need to see the next episode and see how that plays out, because I honestly don't get the interactions for the most part that he has with Shiv outside of him talking about, negotiating, but like telling her about the blood and all that stuff. I don't see what the end game is. Like, maybe he's trying to show her how ruthless he can be. I have no idea. Like, I'm going to defer to somebody else on that, because I got nothing.
Yeah, he's confiding in her, but he's hitting on her, kinda like he's buttering her up. Maybe he really sees this stuff in her. It's really hard to tell. Marcy, what's your read on the situation?
he's coked out, first of all. So
That's
that
true.
could play into it. He's been drinking all day. But another part is that I think he dropped that you know how to take a joke. You're like your dad. But also that's something that men love to tell women, that either you can't take a joke. That was just like a harmless joke that I sent you, my blood. Like you just obviously can't take a joke. But on the flip side, they like to tell other women, you're not like other girls. You can tell a joke. So now I'm going to tell you something like super fucked up because I think you're not going to judge me because you're not like other girls. But then it ends up being like some weird shit and you're just kind of left speechless. Like, I'm so glad that you trusted me with this because you thought I wouldn't judge you, but this is really weird. I'm now secretly going to judge you. So I really don't know. I think it just kind of illustrates again how women can be treated in the workplace, right? Especially when it's somebody that has a lot more power than you do, right? Like that's your boss, that's the CEO. So I think that was just this is just really bizarre. First of all, at first I thought he was joking and I was like waiting for the punchline or for him to say like, like it's a joke, but he didn't. And then I was like, what is this? Also interesting is that Shiv told him not to fire Ebba, but then at the end, it may seem like Carolina's not going to get fired or not. They're not going to get rid of her. So then
Right.
what does that mean for Ebba?
That's a good point. That's a good point because as we learn later on in the episode, there are certain people, basically all of the old guard except for Jerry, they're out. And Carolina's still very much a part of it. So that's interesting. But yeah, to me, it's so hard to tell what Mattson is doing. And you brought up a good point. He was using drugs there. I guess like that he was, he offered it to Shiv. Did she take it? I couldn't tell. Okay. It was, yeah. So that's definitely something worth noting, the drug stuff. Yeah, I don't know. He's a weird guy. He's a, eccentric billionaire, I guess that's kind of what they're playing up, and it seems to be the case.
It's mostly erratic.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, like, he would be cooler if he was eccentric. Like he's just erratic, and
well, it's probably the blood loss. Like you've given how many liters of your blood now? That's probably why you're not making very smart decisions. Like you just need some more blood, bro.
True Blood. Maybe that's a nod to True Blood. That's Eric right there, man.
Marcy's killing it with the comedy today.
Dude, it's Marcy every day, bro. I just don't know.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the final meeting between Mattson and Kendall and Roman. Now, by this point, Kendall and Roman have decided they're going to tank this. They're taking this deal no matter what, and they're gonna, their way of doing that is basically telling Mattson like they basically want to make it where he doesn't want to buy the company, right? That's now their goal. They're going to tell him all about their the problems they're having with their studio, which, by the way, one of my favorite parts of this episode was they're talking about this movie that they have that's in production. It's called, hold on, let me get the notes here. It's called Calispatron, yeah, Calispatron Hibernation, which sounds like a Transformers kind of movie or something. It's in a rough cut situation. It's about, as Kendall says, it's a fucking sleepy robot in a cave. That's the synopsis. The movie is over budget. It's at $225 million, and they're gonna have to do reshoots that are gonna be $25 million more. And they're having a lot of issues with people on the movie are quitting. The showrunner or the movie producers and stuff are backing out. So it's a big problem for Waystar Studios. So they're pitching Mattson that hey, like, we got a lot of problems with our Hollywood division. We're having some issues, and basically trying to get him to back off. And Mattson, he sees right through them, and he's like, are y'all Scooby doing me? He's like, did you go to the Hanna-Barbera business school? I love that. I thought that was great. I liked then he hits them really hard and he's like, I prefer doing this with your dad. He was a prick, but he knew what he wanted. I think he'd be embarrassed if he saw you two now. He's like his two big boys playing Scooby-Doos. And then Roman just snaps. And Roman's had enough. And he goes up there and of course, like they're on top of this mountain in Norway, like about as high up as you could possibly be. And of course, at that time, Matsson has to take a piss. And so he's going. Roman just marches up to him, sits next to him, and just is like, dude, like, you dragged us out here. You couldn't have just waited. You dealt, like you're the one who fucking killed him. You killed our dad. Like, you dragged out this deal over 6 months and then like he dies and you couldn't just wait a couple of days. You made us come over here. And then he's like, finally, Roman's like, just shut the fuck up. We're not selling to you. We're not doing it. We're going to grind you down. We're sanding the gears. Every email is going to take like 6 months, which I thought, well, that's kind of like the place where I work, but never mind that. There was all kinds of stuff. And then he just closed it simply with, I fucking hate you. He's like, we're not selling to you. And if you tell the board any of this, I'll say it's a negotiating tactic, you stupid cunt. Like he nailed him. Of course, then Matsson's like, hey, like, you just fucked yourself with that by telling me, I'm going to tell the board all this. Like, you just fucked up. Frank, what did you think about Roman going into business for himself and basically just telling Matsson everything he wanted to tell him the whole time?
You know what? I've been saying this for years. Roman's my favorite character. The main reason why I love Roman so much is that he's so sarcastic and nonchalant and dismissive. But I'm starting to love passionate on the terror Roman. Like this, this surprised me. And like, there's been a lot of like foreshadowing the last 3 episodes. Like he just hasn't dealt with, like none of the kids have dealt with the death well. But like this bravado of like, I'm fine. I pre-grieved or whatever he said in episode 3. I'm good. Like he's not good. And like, I think over the last couple of days, he's just been internalizing everything and like dealing with the, from the standpoint of like sending that text message to his dad and him feeling guilty that he might have killed his dad to like, now like with us, now we're trying to keep the legacy of his dad alive with ATN and then like dealing with Madison and dealing with the very coldness of like him not giving a fuck about his dad's death. I think all of it just came to a head. And like, as any human being, when you internalize so much and hold shit in, you explode. And I think that's Roman right there, just letting loose and not giving a fuck. And I didn't take it as a negotiation tactic. I mean, I know Ken told him what they wanted to do, but I think Roman just said, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna say how I feel, and I'll live with the results." And I love that. I love that. I wish more of the Roys showed that kind of compassion and like, I don't give a fuck attitude. Ken could definitely take notes on that.
Yeah. Tristan, what'd you think about Roman kind of speaking up for the first time and really like, not trying to be the funny guy, but like actually coming after somebody?
Yeah, like I said, like Roman is becoming the moral center of the show. He is, I don't know if tragedy made this happen, but we've seen kind of in small spaces where he is looking out for Shiv and what she needs in the moment, right? Looking out for Kendall, what he needs in the moment. And this is a place that if you were taking us back to season 1, I would have never thought this could happen, because he has famously or infamously been insensitive, overly sarcastic, dismissive, and he has a good read now on the moment. And that was emotionally, that was the best read on the moment. Like, this guy is intentionally fucking you guys over. He's, using his leverage of this deal that he knew that your dad needed, that the company needs, to like jerk you guys around insensitively, does not give a damn about, grieving, none of that. It's just pure, 1, business, and on 2, like just, horseplay with Kendall and Roman. Was that the most effective thing to say? No. Right. But it it was something that needed to be said. Like clearly nobody is standing up to Madsen and nobody's having the courage to tell him to fuck off, right? And we can talk about whether, the Roys actually won in the end, but I'm sure it felt really good for Roman to, just tell him off, in a way that he deserved it. He absolutely deserved for Roman to say everything that he said to him. It gets Madsen at least to take him seriously. I don't know if he still takes Kendall seriously, but he absolutely, to a degree, takes Roman seriously in that moment. And he's willing to not just blow up the whole deal, but like, get in hot water with the board and everybody else, in service of telling this petulant 6'8" child, Swedish child, fuck off. You know what I'm saying? Like, that needed to be said. So I applaud Roman at the same time, while also like, this is a flaw of Roman, that he has the right instinct, but the wrong execution sometimes.
Yep. Marcy, what do you think about that? What do you think about Roman's outburst toward Madsen?
I think we could definitely see it coming. Like we've mentioned, he said he pre-grieved, but we knew that was going to come out eventually. I definitely think seeing the picture that Connor sent him definitely drove him over the edge, but that's just like classic like grief that had nowhere else to go. So yeah, I'm sure he hates Madsen, but a lot of that wasn't just about how much he hates Madsen. It's about how much he maybe sad that his dad's dead, maybe upset of like how their dad treated them their whole lives, what kind of relationship they had with their dad, especially toward the end. So it was a lot of emotions that just had to go somewhere, and they just kind of erupted on Madsen. And like Tristan said, I think maybe he respects Roman a little bit more for being able to do that. And maybe he wasn't sure, like, was this a negotiation tactic? Wasn't it? I think for him, he's just never been like told off like that, because everybody's always respected him or, has been intimidated by him. So we don't know maybe like what real effect that had on him.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've kind of talked about this before, but it's one of those things where Kendall and Roman don't want to sell their company to this guy. They don't trust the guy. They don't like the guy. They don't want to sell it. Now, because of this, because Roman like really took it to Madsen, they get on the flight to go home, and they receive a new offer for the company. And Madsen is now going to fork over more money, and it's now public. He calls the person for Gojo, calls Frank, and Frank shares the news, and everyone's popping champagne, and they're celebrating that now they're getting even more money than they thought. But as you can see, like Roman and Kendall are not super psyched. Like they're part of the celebration, but I don't think that's what they want. I still think they don't want to do the deal. They don't want to have anything to do with this guy, no matter what the price is. And I know everyone has their price, as the $1 Million Man used to always say, but I don't think they have a price that anybody. I don't think they have a price, honestly. I think money doesn't matter to them, and I'm really interested to see what happens going forward.
It's the power they want, right?
Yeah,
Kendall easily is drunk off power, and Roman is drunk off being taken seriously, and without having like those titles, once this deal goes through, they effectively cease to be taken seriously in that particular world. So that's what they're not really happy about.
They got the 100, bro. They got the 100. They good.
It's still an idea. I mean, they can still go. They go back to that. They could buy PGM or PGN or whatever it is. They could buy Pierce, right? And then they could have their own.
And do what with it? They have no fucking experience of running anything.
They'll be flush with cash, though. They got a lot of money. They could buy a sports team. Like.
Why these people won't buy a big ass house in fucking Malibu and just cool the fuck out and just do nothing is beyond me. But oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't get it. You'll never hear from me again.
I will say this. I thought it was a genius move by Madison, because I think Madison knows Roman and Ken don't want to sell. And
Oh yeah.
the big reason why he asked for that picture from Shiv of the boys is to solidify what he thought. And he knows, like, once that's why he went public with it, because he knows the board themselves are not going to want to terminate that deal. And I want to see playing out, like, if Ken and Roman don't want to sell, how are they going to convince the board to not sell, especially with Madison going up $5 a share more, because like it's going to come to a vote. You're interim, so even if you try to axe a deal, I would think that they're just going to vote you out anyways, and have the deal go through.
I mean, everybody's excited about the deal. We saw Carl definitely celebrating. He's like, yes, like, this is my golden parachute. I'm out. I really don't care what happens to any of you fuckers. Like, I really don't care. I'm on my way out. So that, I thought that was hilarious too. He was just like, oh, some of you might get fired. Like, that's fine. I'm going off into the sunset. So I loved how, like, heartless he was, just kind of like celebrating for himself, not really giving a shit. Like,
but it's funny to me, like Hugo looks like he's like in his late 50s, early 60s. Why do you care about working again? If this deal goes through, bro, go buy your island, dog. Like, go buy your island, lure up, get ready for this fucking case.
Insider trading, yeah.
Yeah, against you and your daughter, and like, you have a bunch of money to like to fuck with. You'd be good. Like, I don't know why he's so worried about securing a job.
They are addicted to the power that comes with it. They're addicted to it. They don't know what to do without it.
They love being in the game. You know, they've loved being a part of these big companies and these big deals and feeling like a big shot. And everything is, you know.
My black ass will move to Puerto Rico or Ecuador or Cape Town, and y'all never see me again.
So, as y'all kind of alluded to, so while everyone is celebrating, you know, for momentarily, we find out a little bit later that seconds later, that the kill list has been released, and basically everyone but Jerry, Carolina, and Tom are going to be fired. What is? I'll start with Marcy on this. What is your take on the fact of the three people that we know for sure are going to be sticking around? Is there a common denominator? Is there something about those three that makes sense going forward with this potential Waystar Gojo, or this Gojo acquisition of Waystar?
I mean, Tom, I don't know, because I don't think Madsen really takes him seriously. I don't think anybody really takes Tom seriously, other than maybe Greg. But Carolina and Jerry, I mean, those are like two pretty strong women that you definitely would want to have on your team. So I definitely wasn't surprised that he's not, going to cut them. Definitely, kind of felt bad for Hugo, because he was like, oh, I'm getting cut. Like, what about Carolina? And she's like, okay, bitch, like, why are you trying to come for me? And then, they're basically like, nope, Carolina's staying, and so is Jerry. So I love that. I was like, yes, like, these are two strong women that I would love to see have more power. And Tom, I don't really know what to make of that, honestly. Maybe it's a way to like fuck with Tom.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I was gonna, Frank, what do you think about the fact that maybe Madsen is keeping Tom around because of the situation with Shiv? He obviously knows that they're going through a divorce, will be divorced soon. And like I said, Madsen, who's hard to read for me, and I think for all of us, maybe, he definitely is, interested in Shiv in some way, and he knows a little bit about the marriage, or the fact the marriage is falling apart. What do you think about that?
I think there was a conversation off camera about him, about Madsen securing Tom's position. I think, especially with.
Oh, you think from Shiv and Madsen?
Yeah, I think it was an offhand conversation off camera about securing Tom's position, because there's no reason to keep Tom. Like, Tom does nothing. Even the awkward conversation they had, Madsen and Tom had, pretty much showcased how little Madsen thinks of Tom. So the only reason why I think that Tom is being retained is that Shiv told him, in favor of this unofficial advice I'm giving you about Ebba, I want you to retain Tom.
Fair. Tristan, what do you think about that?
I'm gonna roll with that. I'm sure that that's part of whatever negotiations he and Shiv have had, and maybe Shiv kind of, playing some part in, influencing the deal to go through either now or in the future. Like that may be one of the stipulations. His tongue gets. But Jerry, I wasn't surprised. Carolina, I was a little surprised. But you know, the issues that he has with Ebba, like I guess it shouldn't be too surprising. But Jerry, Jerry has survived everything, so this doesn't shock me at all.
Can you imagine like sending blood to either Carolina or Jerry? Like they would not stand for that.
I don't know.
Man. Jerry might though. Jerry might. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I mean, she wouldn't like it, but I think she would know how to play the game and use it to her advantage.
Yeah.
She's had experience with unwanted solicitations.
Very true.
Unwanted like bodily fluids for sure. Yeah.
I did think that, you know, Matsson calling Shiv at the end and asking her like, "Hey, are you with your brothers? Can you get me a picture of their face? Send me their face." Like that was definitely her showing like, "Hey, y'all should have included me. We should have been the trifecta, the three. It should have been the three CEOs or whatever." Them cutting her out is now coming back to haunt them, I think. Tristan, do you have any thoughts on that one?
No, I just definitely agree with that. Like the maneuvering, mostly from Kendall, but even with Roman, like this is kind of condescending, like, hey, you want to fire Tom? Like it's kind of these little bones they keep throwing her because they clearly clearly only see a path forward as a duo. Yeah. At least on the face, Kendall, I think only sees it, you know, as a solo. Yeah. But is that it always every time that they don't involve each other and every time that they cut each other out of certain things, it always bites all three of them in the ass at some point. So I don't think this will be anything different.
And the fact that she even like sent the picture, right? Like she could have just said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." That was just showing like sibling rivalry. I loved it because she was just like, "Yeah, let me send you a picture of like my two idiot brothers looking all dejected after getting like this huge deal." So that was hilarious.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Let's get final thoughts as we wrap up here. Frank, what are your final thoughts for this episode, or anything that we didn't mention that you want to touch on?
Nah, I mean, it was a good episode. Not much really moved. We won't know the ramifications of their decision until probably episode next week or the week after. Just really more of the transition of like what Kendall and Roman are going to do with this company and the potential division between the World Boys and Shiv and how the board's going to play going forward with this decision with Gojo. I want to see how that plays out because it looks like the line's going to be drawn between Shiv and the Roys and Kendall and Roman. So I want to see how it play out a little bit.
Yeah, they should be called the Roy Boys. You know, the Roy Boys would be a good one. I mean, the Quad Squad's breaking up already. I mean, I feel bad for Greg. He coined that phrase, and now like Shiv's already kind of leaving the squad.
Unpopular opinion. They should also learn how to use Greg.
Yeah.
Greg finds a way to get information.
He does.
Greg's a man of the people. Like he works beneath the scenes, even when, you know, he's not great at it, but like he's so unassuming that I guess people just tell him shit. I would find a way to include. I would actually be the Quad Squad.
Yeah.
That was like very insider information too. And I'm wondering like what kind of podcast is he listening to while like having sex? Like this is something that they should have gotten more into. Like, is he maybe listening to The Watchers? Like that would be interesting to like listen to maybe when you're getting down, or like a crime podcast. Like I'm very intrigued.
Yeah. So basically, Greg said that he heard that like when Matsson was with randos, he wore noise canceling headphones, and he was like, "Yeah, he listens to podcasts." Whoa, he listens to podcasts while they slide down the beanpole. Greg, he didn't get a lot of playing time, but he has an impact. You put him in the game, and he makes a play. Like he makes a play, good or bad. You're like, I remember that guy.
Plus minuses always in a positive every single time. Greg just makes plays, man.
He does. So Tristan, what are your final thoughts as we're getting out of here?
again, the more we talk about it, the more you realize how excellent and well and tight this episode is. Like you said, anytime like we have like these destination episodes where we get everybody in one spot, it's guaranteed to be good, like really good. And I love seeing the dynamics, you know, how the dynamics change. Like Logan's death throws everything off, obviously, but like so many of the same issues that were there, you know, pre-Logan death are still there, and they're just kind of thrown into a different avenue. So just interested to see like who latches on to whom, right? Because in a sense, they're all kind of fighting for survival in some type of way. Like, so what alliances are going to be drawn? Like, who steps up to like really take control of what's going on? Like, because right now, you know, it's a power vacuum. So that's what I'm really looking for. I'm like, every episode is kind of just playing towards the end. I don't know. I have no idea what the ending of this season is going to look like. I have zero clue on that. So every episode is like this new piece. It's like, and that's what makes talking about it so fun, because we have no fucking clue. Like we can't even read Matson, right? So like this has been a fun, you know, post Logan death part of the season, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, it's like a whole new world we're experiencing with these characters every episode. It's awesome, honestly. I love this show. Marcy, what are your final thoughts?
Good episode. I really liked it. Lots of good subtle humor. I'm looking forward to see more Greg. Definitely. I'm looking forward to see Logan in a kilt. I want Marcia to win on that. Like, I think that would be like a great way to end it. And I really want to see what happens with the election. Like maybe for some like strange reason, like Connor really, you know, pulls out a win. I highly doubt it, you know, having like 1% of the vote, but you never know. Stranger things have happened.
Do you think we'll see Logan in the kilt with his compression socks on, or no? No compression socks?
Oh, that would be great. I mean, Carl and Frank already had their compression socks on in the airplane. So like, of course, like he's got to be comfy in, you know, the afterlife down there, up there. Who knows where he ended up?
Yeah, where he goes. Well, he's gonna be like running the news in heaven. That's what the guy said in the last episode. But you know, as we get out of here, my final thought is, you know, I'm not sure if she's on the kill list or not, but you know, the person who has the toughest job on this show is Jess, Kendall's Kendall's assistant, because he makes all these demands and she has to like do them right away. Like in this episode, she has to set up a screening of Callispatron Hibernation, which again is their shitty Transformers movie. She has to like set this up at the retreat. She has to get it 4K giant screen, all 3 hours. And, you know, and then, you know, of course she's told us like late at night. She's like, "Oh, when do you want this done?" He's like, "Tomorrow morning." And like, it's always like the next 5 minutes, the next 2 minutes, tomorrow. Like she never has much time to prepare. And she's always like, he's like, "Can that be done?" She's like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah." Like, and you can see her face. She's like, "Oh my God, there's no way I can do this." But she always does it. I love the screening of the movie. I like how Ebba walked away and she's like, "Oh, I'll be back." Because Kendall's like, "Oh, where are you going?" She's like, "No, I'll be back." And she's like, "Oh, it's so intriguing." And meanwhile, the Gojo people are just like bored to tears. They're just like, "God, this movie's terrible." I don't know. I love that stuff. I love the mixing like real world stuff into this show, which this show does so well. So anyway, another great episode. Really enjoyed it. And you know, if you would like to, so you know, now you know what we think about the episode. We want to know what you think about the episode. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can, if you're watching us now on YouTube, if you're watching us now or later on YouTube, it doesn't have to be right now, but hey, leave us a comment. We appreciate it. Also, if you're watching, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that. I think we're up to like almost 260 subscribers. So we're adding some like every day. We appreciate it. Keep watching us. We've got a lot of stuff planned. We've got 5 more episodes of session coming your way. We've also got, we're doing a rewatch series in the Guardians of the Galaxy. We've got Guardians 1 coming up this Wednesday. We've got Guardians 2 next Wednesday. And the following week, we're covering the Guardians Volume 3. It'll be in theaters pretty soon. So check us out for that. Also, we're on social media, of course. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at Watchers Basement. And if you comment, make sure you use the hashtag Watchers Basement so we know what you're talking about. And if video is not your thing, we have audio podcasts. So check us out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. And hey, if you're checking us out on Spotify, you might as well watch the video. It looks even better because it's on your phone. It's a smaller screen. It looks great. So check us out. And if you're following us on any of those platforms, or if you're checking us out on any of those platforms, be sure to give us a follow. We appreciate it. All that stuff matters. It all helps us out. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating. That stuff helps too. So getting out of here. So for Marcy, for Tristan, for Frank, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.